In 2025, a strange phrase erupted across the internet like a digital wildfire. Two cryptic words began spilling from the mouths of millions of children. Teenagers and influencers, most of them clueless about what they were repeating. Schools cracked down. Parents freaked out. Pastors warned of dark influences. And at the center of the chaos stood a shadowy rapper from the depths of Philadelphia who openly claimed he had sacrificed animals and performed forbidden rituals to ancient forces in exchange for fame. His name was Skrilla, transformed from an underground trap house artist into one of the most viral names on the planet. But what nobody wanted to talk about was the cost, the blood rituals, the spiritual bargains, the eerie ceremonies he documented for millions to watch online. Today, we're exposing the full story: how Skrilla allegedly used Santerra animal offerings and occult practices to engineer one of the fastest rises in modern rap history. And by the end, you'll understand why parents, religious leaders, and even fellow rappers believe he represents one of the most dangerous cultural influences in music. Today, this is the hidden origin story of the rapper who claims his fame was summoned from the shadows. Before diving into the rituals and the controversy, you need to understand where Skrilla came from. Because his story didn't begin with music. It began in one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in America. Skrilla, whose real identity remains largely undisclosed, is 24 years old and grew up in Kensington, Philadelphia. If you've never heard of Kensington, imagine a place where addiction rules the streets. Activists have called it the most dangerous neighborhood in the country. It's the epicenter of the opioid epidemic, a place where open-air drug markets never sleep, and human suffering plays out in real time. People there live trapped in addiction, consumed by fentanyl, tranquilizers, and a terrifying mixture locals call the zombie drug. Skrilla didn't just witness this, he grew up inside it. He said these people weren't strangers. They were his friends, his neighbors, his childhood companions. That's how deep his roots ran. But here's the twist. Unlike many rappers from chaotic backgrounds, Skrilla didn't grow up without structure. He had both parents. His mother was Mexican from Texas. His father was black and raised in Philadelphia. Both were college-educated. His father pushed him into sports, especially basketball, and Skrilla wasn't just average. He was winning MVP trophies, traveling for competitions, showing real promise. So how does a kid with opportunities, talent, and stability become one of the most controversial figures in modern rap? The answer, according to Skrilla, lies in something far deeper, something spiritual. To truly understand him, you have to understand Kensington. This wasn't just a neighborhood. It was a psychological crucible. Over the years, it transformed into what locals call Zombieland. Walk down Kensington Avenue and you'll see bodies frozen mid-collapse, bent at unnatural angles, trapped in drug-induced paralysis. Some have open wounds from toxic substances that eat away at their flesh. Skrilla documented this world, obsessively walking through the streets, greeting people by name, showing a comfort that outsiders find terrifying. He claimed most of the people there weren't even from Philadelphia. They came from across the country because Kensington offered the strongest, cheapest drugs. They arrived with nothing, pitched tents, and disappeared into addiction. And at just 12 years old, Skrilla joined that world not out of desperation, but because in Kensington, trapping wasn't optional. It was culture. By his early teens, he was making real money. The thrill was intoxicating. Sports trophies couldn't compete with street cash, but the streets came with consequences. By age 16, Skrilla had 6 heroin distribution charges. 6. Most kids his age worried about homework. He was facing prison. The only reason he avoided detention was his grades, athletic record, and parents showing up to court every time. Instead, he was sentenced to 2.5 years of house arrest. And in that isolation, something inside him changed. He started searching for another path. And that's when his story took a dark turn. The deeper you dig, the darker the trail becomes. On the surface, the viral phrase looked harmless, just another internet catchphrase. But beneath the memes and jokes, 67 carried shadows most people never imagined. The number wasn't just mystical speculation, it was tied to real streets. Real crews and real blood. In Philadelphia, 67 traces back to a ruthless circle known as YSN, a crew with a reputation built on violence and vengeance. When kids across the country chanted the phrase, they had no idea they were echoing a symbol linked to real-world conflict. To them, it was fun. To Philly, it was war. And that's where the controversy explodes, while Skrilla denies any allegiance to Satan. Religious leaders, pastors, and parents saw something far more sinister. From a Christian viewpoint, any attempt to communicate with spirits outside of God is forbidden territory. Scriptures condemn divination, rituals, sacrifices, and spirit consultation, calling them gateways to deception. In that worldview, the spirits Skrilla calls ancestors or orishas are interpreted as demonic entities disguising themselves. The argument is chilling. Demons offer temporary success, influence, and protection, but demand loyalty and spiritual control in return. A modern pact with unseen forces. It's disguised as culture and tradition. And then there's blood. In Christianity, Jesus' sacrifice is considered final. Any other blood ritual is seen not as sacred but as a mockery of divine truth. To critics, Skrilla's sacrifices weren't cultural heritage, they were spiritual rebellion. But here's where the story fractures into conflicting realities. Santar A is legally protected. Courts ruled that banning its practices violates religious freedom. For practitioners, it's not darkness, it's ancestry, healing, identity. To dismiss it as evil is seen as cultural erasure, a modern echo of colonial suppression. So who decides what's sacred and what's dangerous? Meanwhile, the streets tell their own brutal story. The YSN crew name carries a violent legacy. In 2022, 2 members, Penny and Dawes, were killed in a robbery gone wrong. Betrayal, gunfire, chaos. Then came retaliation. Then more bodies. Names like Banzo Shack and Chucky became chapters in a cycle of revenge that spiraled through the city. 6 shooters, 15 bullets, public executions. Philly wasn't playing, and Skrilla stood close enough to feel the heat. He wasn't just an artist observing from afar. He grew up inside that environment. His lyrics weren't fiction, they were reflections of a world where death is currency and survival is status. This is what critics call demonic tune-out in a spiritual sense. But in a moral one, glorifying violence, normalizing death, turning trauma into entertainment for millions of suburban kids who have never heard gunshots outside a video game. Yet the music industry watched all of this and saw opportunity. Controversy equals clicks. Fear equals fame. Shock equals streams. Shock equals streams. Labels pushed him. Platforms boosted him. Brands analyzed him. Authenticity sells even when it's terrifying. And Skrilla was undeniably real. But another question lingered his mind. He admitted he couldn't create without drugs. Every track recorded while high. Every verse fueled by pills, whippets, altered states. He described entering a zone where words appeared in his mind before he understood them. A creative possession. Or chemical chaos. Doctors warn of brain damage, addiction, paralysis. Spiritual critics warn of vulnerability to unseen influences. And he said when he quits drugs, he quits music. A confession that his identity, his art, his persona all tied to intoxication and ritual. The rise was explosive. The cost still unfolding. His identity has fused into a single volatile formula: music, substances, rituals, persona. Strip one away and he doesn't recognize himself. Without the haze, without the chance, without the chaos, Skrilla admits he doesn't know who he'd become. So what does the Skrilla phenomenon really reveal about culture in 2025? First, it proves that ancient spirituality never died, just evolved. Traditions like Santeria aren't buried relics. They're breathing, transforming, colliding with modern fame. Skrilla dragged those hidden traditions into mainstream pop culture, shattering the myth that society moved beyond belief. We didn't become secular. We became spiritually fragmented. Second, it exposes the raw hunger for authenticity. Skrilla wasn't built in a boardroom. No label engineered his rise. He came up through real connections, real pain, real belief. In a world filled with manufactured personalities. His darkness felt honesty. Honesty is addictive, even when it's disturbing. Third, it reveals how spiritually unaware the public has become. Millions chant 67 without knowing what it might symbolize. They stream songs about orishas without understanding what orishas are. They scrolled past ritual imagery with no context, no awareness. Whether you believe in the spiritual realm or not, Skrilla doesn't, he creates from that belief. Ignoring that is cultural blindness. Fourth, it forces uncomfortable questions about parenting and media literacy. Parents woke up too late. By the time they understood what their kids were chanting, it was already viral. Schools banned the phrase. Teachers complained. Detentions were issued. But prohibition only fueled rebellion. In the era of infinite content, control is an illusion. Fifth, it challenges the boundary between religious freedom and social responsibility. Society protects belief systems, even controversial ones. But when those beliefs are broadcast to millions of teenagers, influence becomes power. And power demands accountability. There's no simple answer, only a growing debate. The backlash has been fierce. Christian leaders released videos dissecting Skrilla's beliefs, warning their audiences of spiritual danger. Pastors analyzed his interviews, labeling his faith a deceptive fusion of truth and distortion. Comment sections exploded. Some agreed. Others accused them of cultural intolerance. Youth ministers struggled to explain why this wasn't just music. Parents blocked his songs, banned the phrase, and had uncomfortable conversations about spirituality and influence. Even the hip-hop community is divided. Some artists respect Skrilla's authenticity. Others fear his message. A few quietly distanced themselves, careful not to ignite controversy. And Skrilla. He leaned into it. He admitted he enjoys the mystery, the fear, the question mark hovering over his name. Controversy isn't a side effect, it's part of his brand. But beneath the spectacle, warning signs flashed. His drug use is extreme. Hundreds of dollars daily. Nitrous, opioids, pills. A ticking clock with no pause button. His ties to street violence place him in constant danger. His spiritual controversies could eventually alienate brands, platforms, collaborators. Fame built on shock can collapse just as fast. And then there's his confession. When he quits drugs, he quits music. A future self he can't yet imagine. A life he knows isn't sustainable. So where does this end? Will Skrilla reshape culture or be consumed by it? Will his influence inspire exploration, rebellion, destruction, or evolution? One thing is certain, he is impossible to ignore. And in the modern era, tension is power. And power always comes with consequences. Drop your thoughts below. Do you see danger, culture, or something in between? Should music push spiritual boundaries or cross a line? Subscribe, turn on notifications, and join this conversation. We're diving deeper into hip-hop, belief, and power. Your perspective matters because what we question today shapes culture tomorrow. Don't stay silent. Don't stay silent.